ผมเคยเอาขึ้นมา30หัวต่อโลกนะ
And we would bury 50 men at a time.
들어올 때는 뭐 휴지 쪽 아무것도 받은 거 없이 그냥 몸만 들어오신 거예요.
Across Asia, the toll of Japanese wartime brutality still echoes. The memories live in those who suffered. And in those who refuse to forget.
The world needs to keep remembering.
I wear this uniform because of them.
Over 8 decades later, the reckoning remains unfinished.
왜냐하면 일본이 앞으로 평화 국가로 계속 나아가기 위해서는 과거에 대한 철저한 반성에 의해서 이 문제를 해결하지 않습니까?
This is the truth that must be confronted.
Tongprom Taeyang is no longer alive. His voice survives only in old footage, and in the memories his son is left to carry. Tongprom was 97 when we last spoke to him, one of Thailand's last living witnesses to the death railway. It was 1942. Imperial Japanese forces had swept through Southeast Asia and a vast military project was underway. A railroad carved through dense jungle to fuel Japan's westward push. Workers like Tongprom were promised wages. Instead, he walked into a world of death.
มีคนเจ้าของช้างเราอยู่4-5 คนเราทำกลางวัดแต่เช้าขับช้างเสร็จไปใส่องค์ไปลากแล้วเขาเตะก็ตะวันเกือบเที่ยงนะกลับมาก็นอนตอนบ่ายสัก2 โมงไปอีกอย่างนั้นทุกวันนะป่วยตายอดข้าวตายบางทีตักลมเขาคูบแล้ว4 เหลี่ยมป่วยตายมาถึงโยนลงอยู่ที่ตายน้อยไม่ใช่น้อยตายอยู่อย่างนี้น่ากลัวกันแล้ว
For most of his life, Tongprom said nothing about what he endured, not even to his family. It wasn't until his son began digging near their home that the past resurfaced.
ผมเคยไปขุดที่ตรงเขื่อนที่กำลังเริ่มสร้างเขื่อนกระดูกเป็นกองเลยเป็นหลุมผมเคยไปขุดเคยเอาขึ้นมา30หัวต่อโลกนะ30หัวมาไว้วัดเนี่ยมาทำบุญ
This is the Thailand-Burma Railway. This 415-kilometer railway took just over 1 year to complete. An engineering miracle, but one that is shrouded in tragedy and devastation. It sits in a part of the world that is achingly beautiful and peaceful, yet the human cost was one of the worst atrocities of the Second World War.
Deep in the Thai and Burmese jungles, thousands suffered and died. About 60,000 Allied prisoners of war were forced to build this railway. A quarter died in captivity. The rest returned home sick and damaged. And perhaps the greatest injustice still lingers, the fate of Asia's forced laborers, more than 200,000 human lives. Many lost with no graves, no records, no memorials.
ประมาณ 200,000 คนที่เข้ามาทำงานแล้วเสียชีวิตคาดว่าไม่ต่ำกว่า 90,000 คนที่เสียชีวิตในการสร้างทางรถไฟเส้นนี้ค่ะญี่ปุ่นไม่ได้มีหมอไม่ได้มีอะไรที่จะรักษาเขาเวลาเขาทำงานหนักเนี่ยค่ะก็คือเสียชีวิตแล้วก็ไม่มีการฝังด้วยแต่คุณหนีไม่ได้อยู่แล้วเราไม่มีข้อมูลอะไรเกี่ยวกับเอเชียนเลเบอร์เลยเพราะเอกสารทุกอย่างคุมโดยญี่ปุ่นเมื่อญี่ปุ่นแพ้สงครามทำลายทิ้งหมดเลย
Along this railway, the jungle has grown back. Trains still pass, tourists take photographs, but beneath the sleepers, the past still breathes.
These are the roads of Bataan today, busy now and filled with the rhythms of everyday life. But in 1942, these same roads bore the last stand of joint Filipino and American forces.
It was here that Filipino and American forces surrendered after months of siege, triggering the capture of more than 75,000 troops and the start of the Bataan Death March. Today, these markers stand not as a symbol of defeat, but as a reminder of the sacrifice and the human cost of war.
Major General Ramon Zagala pauses, visibly emotional, as he recalls the courage and survival of his grandfather and father during World War II.
I wear this uniform because of them.
On April 9, 1942, the Bataan Death March began. Along with some 70,000 Filipino and American soldiers, father and son Rafael and Ramon Zagala were forced to march more than 100 kilometers to Camp O'Donnell. Many died along the way from hunger, thirst, exhaustion, and disease.
He was sick. He had some fever. They didn't know if it was malaria or dysentery. And my father he did not carry, but he had friends with him from Ateneo. Kasi they're at Ateneo ROTC. And they were dragging my grandfather.
They survived the march, but what awaited them at Camp O'Donnell was even deadlier. The prisoner of war camp was marked by severe overcrowding, disease, and starvation. Tens of thousands would die under brutal conditions. For the Zagala family, survival came down to a single small measure.
He was able to pick up a can of Western cooking oil. And then he would give a teaspoon to his father, to himself, and to his two other friends who helped carry their father. And for him, that made them survive. Or very little rice, they would put 1 teaspoon of oil.
Of the roughly 60,000 Filipino and American prisoners held there, an estimated 30,000 died from illness, starvation, and exhaustion.
He used to say that they would dig graves for 50 men, and they would bury 50 men at a time.
The memory of the march lives on inside this World War II museum in Balanga, Bataan. Most visitors to the museum are Filipinos, though some foreign tourists also come. One of them is American national Greg Mergen. His father, Corporal Nicholas Mergen, fought in Bataan and became a prisoner of war, and was later held in Manila before being transferred to Osaka.
On the brink of tears, to be honest. But it isn't just him, it's all the greatest generation that are soon to be all out, no longer on this earth. And that's why the world needs to keep remembering.
More than 8 decades on, most of those who witnessed Bataan are now gone. And the story survives no longer in those who march, but in those who choose not to forget.
Tucked into a corner of a train station plaza in Seoul stands a 2-meter-tall statue. It serves as a quiet reminder of a painful chapter in the nation's history. During World War II, this station was one of the gathering points where Korean laborers were assembled before being sent to Japan, forced to work under harsh and dangerous conditions. According to historical records, up to roughly 1 million Koreans were mobilized for forced labor under Japan's wartime policies, sent to mines, factories, and military sites across Japan and its occupied territories. Many of those sent away never returned. Others came home injured, sick, or permanently disabled, often without pay, records, or recognition. Today, many of those stories are preserved at the National Memorial Museum of Forced Mobilization under Japanese occupation, located in the southern coastal city of Busan.
마음 아프죠. 올 때마다 제가 그런 일을 그 시대에 살았으면은 어떨까 하는 상상도 못 하겠어요, 정말. 그래서 마음 아프고 일단은 그런 일이 다시는 좀 벌어지지 않게끔 우리가 잘 보살펴야 되겠다.
For many of the surviving family members, like Mr. Lee Chul-kwon, the pain is deeply personal.
거기서 탄광에서 그 갱도를 수백 미터인가 내려가 가지고 일을 하고 올라오시고 하여튼 들어와서 모든 게 임금은 전부 다 받아서 그쪽에 우체국에다 저축을 하고 들어올 때는 휴지 쪽 아무것도 받은 거 없이 그냥 몸만 들어오신 거죠.
And the damage wasn't limited to lost pay. Years of brutal labor left many survivors with chronic illness and injuries that followed them for the rest of their lives.
아버지 연세 51세. 작고할 무렵에. 네, 평생의 아버지의 모습은 정상적인 일을 할 수 있는 그 형편이 컨디션이 아니었어요. 근데 참 어머니가 다 커버하시고 다행스럽게 팔남매 잘 지내고.
To this day, questions of accountability and responsibility remain unresolved. Japan maintains that compensation for victims was settled under a 1965 treaty normalizing diplomatic ties with the Republic of Korea. However, the ROK's Supreme Court has ruled otherwise.
1965년에 한일 국교 정상화 때 청구권 협정에 의해서 국가의 보호권은 해지가 됐지만 개인의 청구권은 그대로 살아남아 있습니다. 이것은 중국도 마찬가지고 한국도 마찬가지입니다. 따라서 개인의 청구권에 대해서는 위자료 형태에서 보상해야 된다는 것이 한국의 대법원의 판결입니다. 그러나 일본의 정부나 기업은 여기에 대해서 전혀 따르지 않고 있는 것이 현실입니다.
Activists say the issue isn't simply about compensation, but about how history is remembered.
일본 사회를 위해서 가장 필요한 일이라고 생각합니다. 왜냐하면 일본이 앞으로 평화국가로 계속 나아가기 위해서는 과거에 대한 철저한 반성에 의해서 이 문제를 해결하지 않습니까? 그런데 과거의 역사를 왜곡하고 자신들의 침략 전쟁의 사실을 부인하고 있는 것이 가장 큰 문제죠.
More than 8 decades later, the issue goes beyond compensation for victims and their family members. It's now an issue about dignity and whether the truth of history will be fully confronted.